the suspense of not knowing where the rocket is going to land adds to the pressure. And, since a direct hit can take down an apartment building, it's pretty terrifying.
That's Jenna Lewinsky, a former resident of Abbotsford, British Columbia, speaking to me from her farm near Efrat, a disputed Jewish settlement on the West Bank near Bethlehem. You may have heard of Lewinsky back in 2016 when she brought her flock of Canadian Jacob's sheep to Israel in a journey that was billed as returning the ancient biblical species to the Holy Land, where these animals have been extinct for generations. A little later, we'll hear how the sheep and their Canadian keeper are trying to ride out the outbreak of hostilities between Israel and Gaza and between Jews and Arabs elsewhere in the country. I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. Welcome to the CJN Daily, sponsored by Metropia. But first, while Canadian Jews have certainly been keeping their eyes on the situation in Israel, in recent days, some have been dealing with an unprecedented series of anti-Semitic threats here at home, and even outright attacks on Jews, from rock throwing in Winnipeg and Montreal to assaults at a rally in Toronto. And on Monday, Edmonton's Jewish community went so far as to issue an official warning, even though it was on Shavuot, a religious holiday, because of reports of 2 Jewish families being targeted. Adam Zepp was visiting his parents Sunday night when this happened.
A car ripped by, was going quite quickly, and, windows were rolled down, and few young men yelled out "Free Palestine," and obviously we're not morons. We know what's going on in the world, and we are kind of just like, okay, whatever, no harm done. And then they kind of got to the end of the street my parents lived on, pulled a Yui, and they were driving quite fast, and they had some sort of aftermarket muffler, so we could hear them coming back. And they stopped in front of our house and said, "Oh, do you know if any Jews live here? 2021 Edmonton, everyone. Do you know if any Jews live here?" So, my mom, being a bit of a cooler head than I was, said no. And they kind of looked at us and they were like, "Okay, fuck you," and then accelerated off.
The Edmonton police say their hate crimes and violent extremism unit is investigating.
Easy, mama. Go in.
And that's what it sounded like when Jenna Lewinsky's famous flock of Jacob's sheep arrived in Israel from Canada about 4.5 years ago on a series of Air Canada flights. You might have seen media coverage of this unusual journey, of how a Jewish couple from British Columbia raised these special black and white speckled sheep that are mentioned in the Bible as the kind that Jacob looked after. When Lewinsky and her then husband made Aliyah and moved to Israel, they arranged for their flock of about 120 heritage sheep to follow. But Jenna Lewinsky and her Jacob's sheep have been going through some hard times lately. First, thanks to COVID, the Israeli and foreign tourists stopped visiting. They used to come to see the sheep with their remarkable 6 horns and their black and white and brown speckled coats. COVID also dried up sales of her sheep products, including shofars and the wool. Then, the Israeli army wanted Lewinsky to move, since they can't provide protection for her. Her farm is located on an isolated hill outside Efrat and surrounded by Arab communities. Despite that, so far she's managed, including with the help of some of those Arab neighbors who donated hay bales and some charity money from an American organization called Genesis 123 Foundation. Jenna joins me now from her farm, where she lives with her son. I should mention that you might hear him watching a Baby Einstein video in the background. So how are things where you are at the moment? Describe what the situation is right now.
We do hear explosions in the distance. We hear the explosions regardless if the Iron Dome intercept the rockets or not. We all have just over a minute to find shelter. And when you're a shepherd like me of the Jacob sheep and you're situated in an open field outside of Efrat with no bomb shelter, it's very likely that the rocket will not be intercepted because the Iron Dome has a policy. It's about cost and also about where the most densely populated areas are situated. So they may not be aware that I'm in this field.
You had an incident that gave you a black eye. This was in the other night when there was the large rocket barrage over Tel Aviv. Describe where you were and what happened.
Yeah, during the large rocket barrage on Tel Aviv, there was a lot of distant noises because the Israeli Air Force was targeting Gaza, and they blew up a ammunition factory, which is a huge explosion. 30 kilometers like by air away, and obviously we hear this huge explosion. So I decided to go and check on the animals, because as much as war has an effect on our children and us, it also has an effect on animals. And so I went just to be there with them. And one of the little lambs, she's not a lamb, she's a ewe lamb, but like 1 year old, she got a bit skittish, and I tried to hug her, but she kind of head-butted me, and it hit just below my eye, so I had a swollen eye, so it looked like I was part of the war. But thankfully my eye is fine, and besides a few orange marks, it turned out okay.
So you don't have a shelter. What do you do when your phone must be going off with the air raid notices? What do you do?
Okay, so I'm just having a minute to decide what to do. You feel almost like you're powerless, like there's nothing to do. So I jump under the kitchen table with David. And I try to make it as stress-free as possible, because he's just a baby. He's just almost 18 months, and he doesn't understand war or loud barrages of rockets. And so I keep soft music in the background and just try to make everything as stress-free as possible.
Do you have helpers coming, or are they not coming during this current situation of violence?
Normally I would have a few helpers that would come, but some are involved in the war. The reservists are called up. And others just don't have childcare, so they have to be with their families. And so I understand that within the war, there's another war, being alone and out here by myself. I'm surrounded by Arab communities, because the closest Jewish resident is in Efrat, which is 5 kilometers away. But something that's really paid off for me is, since the day I arrived here 3 years ago, I made solid friendships with all my Arab neighbors. And during this escalation, they're as annoyed with it as I am. They don't want war. And so we are actually able to be in peace without no Arabs on bicycles to pepper spray us, as such, which is happening in other cities in Israel, like Lud and Beersheba, and somewhat in Tel Aviv. So it's actually very quiet out here. I feel like they respect me because I'm a shepherd, and they know I'm women alone. I don't have a gun. I don't live by the gun. And I always told them I'm really just here to take care of the animals. Just sometimes being so invested, and I've put so much into this journey through fires, floods, disease, and a lot of challenges, no electricity, no water. One morning I just decided to wake up, and as we all are just human, I said, I had enough. I want to take the sheep back to Canada. But of course this is not meant to be, because Israel is their home. So so we continue to exist and to do the mission.
All right, Jenna, be safe, and happy
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Ellen. Bye.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, sponsored by Metropia, integrity, community, quality, and customer care. I'm Ellen Besner. You can reach me at ebesner@thecjn.ca. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. We'll close with a little more of Edmonton's Adam Zepp describing what happened Sunday night.
What pisses me off the most is, what if I had answered, you know what? Yeah, I am Jewish to these guys. What would have happened then? I don't know. But I could tell you one thing. These guys weren't driving through, the W's, which is a very Jewish neighborhood in Edmonton, for a joyride. They were looking for trouble, and you could tell. You could see it in their eyes.